Shut up and sit down.
Oh, yeah?
Right, hello everyone. I am W.S. Quinton with Channel Geek, and I am talking today with up-and-coming, highly talented comic book and fantasy role-playing artist Alexia Veldhuisen. Alexia, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Now, full fair disclaimer, Alexia and I have been working together for most of a year now. On various projects. So we're going to do a little bit of an introduction for you and introduce everyone to the world of being a professional artist in these two very competitive fields. But first we're going to start with a little background. Alexia, if you would, tell the fine folks what your education is for your comics and RPG art.
Well, I am originally from the Netherlands. I was born and raised in Amsterdam, and I came to the United States in 2011 to follow the Hubert School program out here in New Jersey, from which I graduated in 2014, so it's been quite some time now. The Hubert School is known for their comic book program. They have a very intense 3-year curriculum that is mostly focused on comic book sequential storytelling, but also teaches you all the other aspects of being a freelance commercial illustrator / artist. So we did everything from painting to a little bit of graphic design to illustrations of all kinds, and practically anything that you can think of, really, that you can draw, we did as an assignment.
Now, my understanding is the Hubert School's program is very intense on a day-to-day basis with regards to the amount of actual illustrating that you're doing. Can you give us an idea about what a typical day during, say, your first year looked like?
Well, I can't remember much of my first year because that was a long time ago now, but I remember third year, you'd be in class at 8:30, and we'd get 2 classes a day. It was 10 classes a week, which meant that you had 10 assignments a week. Now, that didn't necessarily have to be full-on, completely done illustrations. It was always chopped up into process steps. So if week 1 would be layout, week 2 would be pencils, week 3 would be inks, week 4 would be finished, for example. It just kind of depended on the class. So yeah, every day you would have 2 classes, so 2 homework assignments that would be either due or in progress. And like I said, class would start at 8:30. And we would have class, I think, up to 2:45 p.m. And then we had another hour and 15 minutes of what they call lab time, which is the extra time that they would give you in school to work on your homework. And so then we would get out at 4, and then you'd go back to your dorms or back to the apartment that I was living with 2 other guys with from my class. And one of us would make dinner, eat, take a nap, and then basically draw all night until the assignment was done. And that could range from 2 to 5 in the morning. I would consider 2 in the morning being done like a good night. That means I would get about 5 hours of sleep. Like I said, that was a good night. Most of the times it was more like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I had a rule for myself personally that if I couldn't finish the assignment by 5 in the morning, I would just let it go and try to catch a little bit of sleep before I would have to get back up to go to class at 8:30.
All right. So you finished school, and then you've been, I would imagine, fairly busy since you got out. What are some of the projects that you've done that really leap out in your mind as some of those important projects after your education concluded?
Well, I didn't really start off being very busy in the beginning. I had a day job already when I was in school. I would work at the coffee shop in Madison every Saturday morning. And then after I graduated, I took on more hours and I became a full-time employee. So in the beginning, there wasn't that much going on. I remember I had my work up at the coffee shop, and that got some interest from a potential writer. I did a book cover for him that never really got anywhere. While we were in school, we actually connected with the Sarah Lawrence College students who were in Scott Snyder's class. And for anybody who doesn't know who Scott Snyder is, he is one of the main writers for DC Comics, mostly known for his work on the New 52 Batman series. So Scott was doing this class for comic book writers. So we got connected with them, and through that connection, I think I was over one of the summers that after I graduated, I just kind of put up a post saying that, hey, I'm available, don't have much going on. So then one of those Sarah Lawrence College folks contacted me about doing a comic book pitch packet. So a comic book pitch packet is when you come up with a concept for a creator-owned comic book series. You write up a synopsis basically to kind of sell the idea of what it is, and you draw a couple of pages, like 4 or 5 max, so you can pitch it to a company such as Image Comics or Dark Horse or, I don't know, Oni Press or whoever does original content. So I did that. I did some character designs and vehicle designs for that, and I did, I think, about 4 pages for that. The writer ended up going into a different writing venue, focusing more on TV, I believe, and other writing venues, so that never really got off the ground either. And then there was another thing that I did with a coworker at the coffee shop who was originally a Broadway or stage actor, but he was also a really good writer, and he came up with this really cool idea, and we came up with another comic book pitch packet that we submitted to the, what's it called again? There was this special fund going on last year or 2 years ago for any kind of original comic book series, and they would give you money and they would coach you through creating the whole book. I can't really think of the name right now, off the top of my head, but I know Iron Circus Comics has something to do with that. So anyway, we submitted it to that, and we didn't get anything. So, my coworker ended up leaving the coffee shop and going off someplace, and so none of those things really got off the ground necessarily. I remember, I think in the first 2 years that I'd graduated, I was actually kind of frustrated with where I was. And then November of 2017, I got a job in New York City as a studio assistant for a contemporary artist. Now, that's like a whole different field altogether. It's just a completely different world because it's fine arts. It's just a very, very different thing. And even though it was a great opportunity and a great job, it didn't end up working out. So by March, they had laid me off, and I was between work. And that's when you came into play, Sonoma Publishing. Thanks to our mutual friend, Brian Lee, who got us in contact with us. At the time, I didn't have anything else going for me. I was like, sure, it's, what else am I going to do right now? But that really, I think, has been the most fruitful and successful collaboration I've done so far, because now I can say that I've been published in an actual book, and we're really focusing on trying to get our Kickstarter off the ground, the 47 Furious Tales comic book samurai epic series that we are very passionate about. And I have full faith in Sonoma Publishing growing up to be a fully functioning publishing company of RPG material, original comic book content, children's books, and whatever else you can think of.
Well, you know what? That last part's the dangerous one, isn't it? So,
but I believe in it.
Let's touch base on this one quick point, because we've got a lot of people here who are hearing you for the first time in this particular venue, and it kind of reinforces that public perception about it's hard to be an artist and to get traction when you're first out of school, when you're first getting your name out there, what would you recommend for the aspiring artists in the audience as far as to be able to become more professionally active and to get their work out with new clients? And what are some of the pitfalls for them?
I think the pitfalls is mostly in yourself, because being in school was a very regimented lifestyle. You didn't have a choice but to just draw all the time. But once you're out of that bubble, and I'm sure that's not just for the Cuber school, I'm sure that goes for any art school. Once you're out of that bubble, you have to somehow create or recreate that discipline yourself, but then suddenly real life comes knocking at the door and you got to deal with all the other things. And that makes it very, very difficult to stay focused on producing whatever it is that you want to produce, whether it's pieces for your portfolio that you want to show to a publishing company or on an online platform, or, or just focusing on a project that you got hooked into. It's just really, really difficult to learn to balance real life day job with your freelance work, with also maybe personal projects and aspirations. Like, I have some personal projects that are a little put on hold right now because I want to focus on getting the work done for Sinopa and getting my stuff published. But there's plenty of stuff still on the back burner that I would love to put my time and energy in as well. So those are some of the pitfalls that I've encountered personally. I discovered that mostly by talking to other young artists who are kind of in the same position that I'm in, that, oh, maybe you should talk to this person, maybe you should go to this website and this platform and put your work out there. It's all about casting out feelers for, also kind of really depends on what it is that you actually want to do. Because that's the thing, I was actually fairly unfocused as to what I wanted to do other than comics. But, if you want to work for Marvel, for example, or DC, you really want to focus on making some really solid sample pages and creating and maintaining relationships with editors. Like, we make these connections when we're still in school. My school happens to help with that. I'm sure not every school does that, but we've sat down with editors from Marvel and DC. So if you continue with those kinds of relationships, you could eventually get something out of it. There's also got a lot to do with luck. I was never really interested in it. I was more interested in doing stuff like what Image is putting out, so a lot of original content. So when you're looking at that, you really want to focus on getting a pitch packet together or developing your own creative property. And like I said, that takes a lot of focus, and sometimes you need to venture out and find a writer that might be able to help you with that if you feel like you can't really do that yourself entirely on your own. So yeah, it's all about just casting feelers and trying to find the right people and trying to get your work in front of the right people, because you can keep knocking on that same door, trying to bother the same editors at cons every year, but the chances of you getting work through those means is very, very slim, because the field is just so competitive. But I discovered artstation.com throughout the years. That's very helpful because they actually have job positions. They have like a job board up, and every day you get emails with open job positions. Now, these job positions are mostly video game related, and they're very heavy on the 3D modeling concept, not as much the 2D illustration positions. So I don't get many opportunities, but every once in a blue moon something comes up and I apply for it. And most of the times I don't hear anything back, and sometimes they're like, oh, well, we found somebody else, but we'll keep your portfolio on file. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's something. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I discovered, and that was actually through an artist that I was working with when I was in the city, was this site called hireanillustrator.com. And they are basically an online platform for illustrators. They're very illustrator focused. So whether you do fantasy covers or just spot illustrations for the New Yorker or children's book illustrations or whatever, you could subscribe to them. I think it was $7 a week. Yeah, $7 a week. And then you got yourself a little online portfolio over there. And they're also very good with trying to connect people, and they write up articles about artists and stuff like that. They're really good. But it is a bit of a financial commitment, so I had to eventually give that up, unfortunately. But I still get the newsletters, and I do intend on eventually getting that back up again. And I actually did end up getting a gig through that platform. So that's something. I actually kind of forgot about that. There was a gig that I got right before or around the same time that I started working for you, that I got through Hire and Illustrator.com. So those are just my personal experiences. Everybody kind of has their own ways of doing things. Like I follow my my peers, the guys that I graduated with, and they all ended up doing very different things. You know,
Like what?
Like
you say they did very different things. What did they end up doing?
Well, one of them actually ended up getting published for an indie company called Action Lab, which I'm sure he got through some kind of crazy, dubious connections. Another friend of mine ended up in front of like a classroom doing a presentation workshop, which again, you know, I don't know how he did that, but I haven't talked to him about that. And then another friend of mine, he ended up going the Kickstarter route with a writer, and he has, I think, put out about 3 comic books now through Kickstarter of their own original content. So it all just kind of depends on who you know, who's in your direct environment, and what kind of information you have. Well, like I said, I never expected to be doing any kind of fantasy illustration or role-playing game material, but here we are.
Yep.
And I really enjoy it.
Yeah. And doing both, too. And in all fairness, doing it pretty well, if I say so myself. Now, we mentioned Kickstarter and creator-owned material, and then also going the route with Image and other companies who will release original intellectual properties. With that, where do you see the grander potential for the comic book artist with regard to how to succeed financially, how to succeed professionally, and how to grow their audience? Is it through the larger established companies like Indie and Dark Horse and I just forgot what the other one I was about to mention was actually.
IDW.
Yeah, thank you, IDW. Or is there maybe a larger audience to be had waiting to be tapped in the Kickstarter and Indiegogo environment and just growing your own brand?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think if you're an absolute rookie that nobody's ever heard of, it would probably help if you grow a little bit more of an online presence and an online audience through your Instagram or your Tumblr or whatever social media platform you like to use before you start gunning for guys like Image, because at this point Image has actually grown so exponentially that it has a lot of merit if you end up getting published through them. It really, really does. I don't know about the financial aspect of it. I couldn't tell you that, unfortunately. But what I do know for a fact is that every once in a while, a title from Image gets picked up for a TV show. But again, I'm talking about people that are already fairly established, have been in the industry for a while. But again, sometimes you get a newcomer that they just happen to be very popular on Kickstarter, and then Image sees that, okay, you know, this seems like it could work, and then they publish it through their label, and it does fairly well. So, but I really do believe that, again, if you're not established through the main channels already, it probably would be very helpful if you could create more of an online presence and community and fan base through the other channels, such as Kickstarter, which I think is great. I think it opens up the opportunities for so many more different ideas and concepts and art styles that Image might not just be able to take the risk on publishing. You know, Image is doing a lot of diverse things, which is why I love them so much. But I'm sure that even them as a business have to make some hard decisions sometimes, whereas Kickstarter, you don't necessarily have that. You just have to convince people to give you money. to do the thing that you want to do. So whether you're talking about, I don't know, an LGBT story, or I don't know, a story about your parakeet or whatever the heck you want to write a story about, if you can convince people to give you money to fund it, then Kickstarter is the way to go.
Yeah, it's not quite as easy as that.
No, I know. But, you know.
And we've seen that firsthand.
Yep.
Comics on Kickstarter are particularly very competitive. And it's difficult to achieve that objective at times. Not the least of which is concerns with printing and all the other stuff. But we'll have to get into that another time. So I think that you've been a wonderful help for our artist audience on this debut of the Channel Geek and talking to the artist. And so I'll go ahead and ask if you can go ahead and let us know where we can find your information so that folks can find where they can see your stuff. And go ahead and if they are needing some really great comic book or RPG art or other illustrations, they can reach out to you for commissions. So we'll see if we can keep you as busy as possible. So, and we'll go ahead and make sure that those are present in the segment on the channel too.